Welcome to another episode of It's Server Time. This is our first episode of 2021, but there has been already a very big event. Yes, I am talking about
Capital Riots, of course.
the Battle of Betway. Close though, Mix. It was the Battle of Betway. But yeah, it's just going to be us three here on this pod, but we're going to be mostly focusing on actually the Blast Global Finals. Great games, actually. For online CS, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I feel like this was really competitive, and I feel like this has kind of been the theme for me, is that when there's a lot of money on the line, people can be visibly pressured. There's actually more room for people to miss big shots, to win big clutches. I feel like all of this stuff breaks down more when the pressure's on. But what have you guys liked about Blast, just to open things up?
I think it helps that, coming after a player break, a lot of the events last year just getting very stale. And, you kind of go a month without CS and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm excited for this again. And then,
Yeah.
it's like Blast comes back. And Blast is like a good one to come back to because it's kind of like, for me at least, it's the event that's come most close to having like kind of like somewhere it's like a LAN feeling, if that makes sense. Like where the event feels important. I feel like there's a lot of work put into the event itself and the broadcasts and everything. And yeah, you could tell that like the pressure is on. I mean, you had a lot of the good teams playing well, Liquid, Vitality, NaVi, all in kind of the heat of it, and seeing all those teams just from the start of the year, from the get-go, seeing kind of like probably like the top three teams in the world at the moment, all kind of fighting each other in such good matches was exciting to see.
Yeah, I think with Blast starting right after the player break and the North American teams also traveling there and having some decent time to practice this time around, it made it that much more exciting because there's a lengthy break for all the teams. And then some of these teams made it there a little bit earlier, like EG and Liquid, and they could actually practice a little bit more coming into it. So it made those storylines a bit more exciting.
Yeah, I have to agree. I feel like the point that you really hit, Mix, that I feel like is just the super accurate is it gets kind of tiring when you just watch online CS after online CS. Almost after a while, I don't mind who puts it on because it just feels like more of the same. But when you have that break, you do desire it after a while. It's when you step away from the game for a minute, then you begin to appreciate it even more. And it's great that the first real big event of the year had pretty much every team we wanted to see. I don't know if anybody really wanted to see this version of Complexity, but we're not going to talk about them too much anyways. So let's start first with the champions. So NaVi actually winning the grand finals there, and they did it through the lower bracket from the very beginning. They had the hardest possible route in terms of total matches played, but they actually cleaned this up. I mean, it wasn't always pretty, but they actually looked really solid in a lot of the matches that they did end up winning. And the first one that I want to bring up is how they ended up playing Liquid twice in this one, and it was actually just the same maps. They just ran it back, but they looked much better on Inferno. And Nuke was pretty close the first time, but the second time around, they ended up just snagging that one. So, what do you guys think? We could talk about Liquid and NaVi here, but what do you guys think about the performances from NaVi? Let's start with them on how they did in this rematch.
I think just having rematches on the same map gives the team that lost an inherent advantage every time because you can always learn from the mistakes you made. But also, let's be honest here. In these last couple of matches for NaVi, Boom Bitch showed up to fuck your bitch because holy shit, he went off in some of these matches. But also all around, I think NaVi just looked like they really tightened up after losing that first match to Liquid. They also played I think they played every team in this event except for EG and Furia, which is really impressive in their run as a whole because it just showed that they were able to consistently beat every other style of team as well. But I will say Simple was absolutely crazy this tournament. And I also really want to give a lot of credit to Perfecto because he helped them close out a lot of rounds that they usually just seem to lose, whether it be to time or it be to just like really tight situations. So I think that was a big part of them winning some of these rounds. The Liquid rematch specifically, I think that Liquid actually definitely had some of those rounds in their hands, especially on Inferno. But I don't know whether they lost it just due to inexperience or because NaVi did a really good job of exploiting the sort of individual calls that were being made. But I remember specifically there were some rounds like on A site where NaVi just clinched like 3v2s over and over to make it across. So all around, I was really impressed with their run. So
I do think it also kind of helped Navi after the first time they lost to Liquid. They had like a 2-1 against Complexity, I think it was, which wasn't
Yeah.
really that impressive. Because obviously Complexity really been struggling. But the match after that, they played G2, which like you would expect that to be a good match, and they just like rammed the fuck out of G2. Like they just absolutely decimated them. I don't really know what was going on with G2 there, but I think it kind of helps. Like Note said, like there's a factor where like you play a match and like you lose 2 close maps, just kind of naturally it can kind of help you the next time you play them because you kind of remember a lot of the scenes that you lost for. And if like Liquid didn't prepare well enough, looked at those matches well enough back, then Navi would have the advantage going back into it. So I think just a combination of Navi getting past like the first match, which they're never really that sick in, and then getting past the first match, building some confidence against Complexity, and especially against G2, and then helps to run it back against Liquid. I thought what was really surprising to me, especially in the matches against, I think it was Vitality and Liquid, was it obviously you have Simple popping off, but Electronic wasn't really like like right beside him or anything there. Like Electronic was like kind of pretty average in those series, even though Navi was taking it to both those teams.
I feel like Electronic in this tournament was actually pretty average in general. He had a couple of games where he looked pretty good, but I would just say he looks like a solid piece for Navi here, as opposed to being a top 5 player in the world kind of thing. And that's actually pretty concerning for me, because to see Boomich and Perfecto play as well as they did, I mean, that's great, honestly. And if they can keep replicating those performances, then I think Navi is going to just destroy this year. But realistically speaking, it's probably more like Boomich and Perfecto will come back down to earth just a little bit, and Electronic will play a little bit better. And we saw last year that even when the 1-2 punch of Simple and Electronic was there, they couldn't get it done. So I wonder, does this just give Navi another tool in terms of, is Boomich or is Perfecto going to show up? And if they can, then great, they can actually win tournaments. And weirdly, it's almost just like, for me, if Boomich, after Simple, if Boomich is doing very well, I feel like Navi actually kind of hit this unstoppable feeling. It's so difficult because the way that Boomich plays is so annoying. The way he pretty much always wants more info. So if he's not dying as he's trying to get more info for Navi, then they just have complete control over whatever it is that they're doing. They know exactly what's happening. Yeah, I would let's throw it to kind of overall, when Navi played this tournament, what because I had a tough time with this question, but I still want to pose it to you guys. What do you guys think Navi did well?
I think they fit BnTeT into their lineup really well, actually. Like, it looks like he's a little bit more comfortable than he was in the matches he was playing previously. Especially on Inferno, he was able to slot in and actually have a lot of impact in some of those rounds, getting more information as well. So I think with that, it just seemed like the team as a whole were also more comfortable around him. And maybe that's why Electronic also just didn't need to frag out as much. There was just more individual power, and just in general, they fit together a little bit better. So I think that definitely helped their run. And again, Simple had such a ridiculous tournament this time around. His stats were just absolutely off the charts, but that's partially because they just steamrolled through this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, like, I think in the future, like Navi's gonna have to do more to integrate BnTeT and integrate them on more maps. Because, like you said, like I don't really count on Perfecto and Flamey playing this well, like for an entire year. Or Perfecto, like, is pretty, whatever, consistent. But more so, like between like Flamey and Boomich, consistently being able to frag and being able to be there to pick up the pieces. Just even when Electronic is playing well, because it seems like they need like a consistent third piece going off. And I don't think, like, long term, I don't really see Flamey being the answer. Boomich doesn't really seem like he's going to be like that consistent just in general. So I think like it's going to come down to integrating BnTeT more and better, in terms of turning Navi into like a more consistent team, like just more of just like a complete monstrosity of like a CIS just super team, super skill. Like, because if you have like BnTeT who just has nuts aim, and you actually are able to integrate into most of your maps, have them feeling comfortable, and you have that along with Electronic and Simple, that could be a lot better than what they've had so far with Flamey the past couple years.
I think Flamey hasn't really. I think I've said this before, but I still feel like Flamey hasn't changed his game up too much. And I still see him in these situations where he's not supposed to die, just take a lot of risks. And it worries me a lot because I think after the player break, it's tougher for teams to capitalize on the fact that he's sometimes out of position. And when Flamey's aim is on, it's great. But he still puts himself in very vulnerable spots that if the other players are in really good, like have really good trade spacing, I'll give an example. At ramp, for example, Flamey will pretty much fall. He'll like try to take an initial fight at ramp, and he'll always fall back. But if it goes silent for maybe 20 seconds, he will almost always try to reaggress. Like he will always try to find something. Like, are they coming down ramp or are they coming down B? And I feel like sometimes it looks great because it's like, oh my god, he timing them so well. Like they didn't expect him to reaggress, but like I thought teams knew he did this after a while. I thought teams figured him out, and I feel like they unfigured him out again. So for me, it's just concerning because he shouldn't be getting away with this. Like I saw him fail at this towards the tail end of last year a lot, but it's almost like everybody just forgot. And now
I think it's just a lot harder to deal with. Like when you're coming back from the break and you've been in a bit, it's just harder to deal with shit like that. Like you guys are still like as a team, like as your own team, you probably come back from the break and you're like implementing some new shit. So you're trying to run new stuff. There's new things you're going over. Just in general, you guys took like a 3-week break from playing with each other. So
yeah,
it's just harder to communicate things like that and be able to expect. And as you kind of get into the groove of the season, it can be teams kind of get more on the same page. And I think teams like Vitality and Astralis will start to punish that a lot more as they get further into the break or further into the season. I mean,
yeah, I can agree with that, and I feel like it's like Pimp at the end of the broadcast kind of did that humbling thing he does where he's like, well, I mean, congrats to NaVi, but let's see how they play if they can keep doing this. And it was kind of like, God damn it, Pimp, let him celebrate. But at the same time, it was also like he's kind of right in that the way they won this didn't feel like it was like, holy shit, they turned the page on teamwork or strategy or something like that. It was just players playing a little bit better than they normally play, and it being very difficult to deal with them playing at this level. So I don't know what they did. I don't know what they ate in the player break, but whatever it did, it paid off. So let's move on to Astralis. And I just really have one big question about Astralis. That what kind of form do you guys think they're in right now? Do you guys think this is like a 2018-19 Astralis where they're just dominating again, or do you think like have they been figured out by NaVi? Are they significantly lower? Maybe I'll do this compared to like whatever, like the peak Astralis that we see winning majors and big tournaments consistently. What kind of percentage are they in right now in terms of their form?
I'd probably give them like, I mean, right now, because in terms of right now, also considering the past few months, I'd probably just put them at like 75 to 80% of like peak Astralis.
That's really low, I feel like.
I don't agree. 80% sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I'd say like 80%. Like, I don't know. I feel like Astralis, like especially when they come back sometimes from these breaks, or just in general, like they start to come back from certain things. It does feel like they just kind of take a bit to get rolling. Astralis doesn't really strike me as one of the teams like they come back from the break and they're just instantly on it again. Obviously, there's certain exceptions to that, like the last major, which was kind of like right after the break, I believe. So sometimes it can benefit them, their style coming back, but at this point, it seems like NaVi just came in hotter form than Astralis did, and I'd probably still bet on Astralis if I had to consider what team's going to do the best over the course of the entire year.
Yeah, I think Astralis are trying really hard to like fit Bubsky into their system on Nuke, and I just really don't think he's a player who's like he's just not the play. I really am not a fan of it. I'd rather see Xipnik stay on that map. But yeah, I think 80% is a pretty good assessment of them. They don't look like back when they were the world-beating Astralis, they would either cruise through teams or they would look so tactically sound that you just wouldn't be able to argue against them winning a tournament or like winning like an individual matchup. This time around, they just look, I guess, rough around the edges, which is something that I feel like you can't say about Astralis normally, but that's just how they felt at some points in this tournament to me.
And also just because like it is still online CS, and like I'm not expecting Astralis to ever hit like even like 95 to 100% of like their peak form whenever it's online. I just don't really think that's really doable.
Yeah, I mean, I would have just put it like a smidgen higher. I wouldn't have said 70%. I would have probably said like 85 maybe or something. Like 80 is reasonable. I could see that, but 70 seems really low for them to still make it to
I
finals.
said 75 to 80.
Oh, okay, that's true. That's true. All right. I feel like if I've thought about this more about the Bubsky fit for Astralis, and I feel like one of the most obvious moves for me would be to try to expand the map pool for Astralis to 7 maps and play Mirage with Bubsky, because I feel like when he was on Mad Lions, that was a map that he consistently succeeded on for me. He was just a really good player in terms of Mad Lions and the strategies that they were running. It was anytime it felt like a situation got hairy or they were down numbers, it was Bubsky that took really good initiative in rounds to try to break things open for them. And I feel like that, like if Astralis want to actually prove to the world that this isn't just some PR thing because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar saying they're going to make a 10-man roster, then I think this would be probably the boldest play, is to say, all right, we are going to start playing Mirage. We're going to play it against teams that we think are bad at Mirage, and we're going to like surprise them with this veto. And until they do something crazy like that, I mean, it's still just a PR move. It's still just like this is just, you're just phoning it in. Like, you're just BS.
Here's my counterpoint to that, though.
Okay.
If you do that, you have to play Mirage. And that's just, that's like a total negative in my opinion.
Like, see, I would only do it as a punish pick against teams that I think are bad at Mirage, which is rare. But like, there's a couple.
Still have to play Mirage, you know. Like, it's just, you don't really win. It's
that's kind of true. But let's say the map pool changes, they probably would take out Mirage, wouldn't they?
I hope
Astralis have been so good with their map pick changes. Like, always their permaban is the one that's going out. Like, it was Cash
take
before.
out Mirage. Yeah.
It's gonna be Mirage now, like every single time.
They prep for the future. That's
Cobble. Don't forget Cobble.
Yeah, they were really on top of that.
Take out Mirage. Just add like Ancient or Tuscan. Add something. I don't know what Astralis to start banning after that, but
they should do this. Bubsky, just play on only Faceit map core hubs and just play like Tuscan only, so when the map comes in, the dude's just a god at it and everybody's like, holy shit, he knows the meta so well.
Bubsky, the best Anubis player in the world.
Exactly, yeah. Just Bubsky, practice on Anubis or Tuscan. We'll be ready for whatever's thrown into the map pool. It's perfect. That's where I would send him. All right. Vitality. So I segmented this into 3 different portions, and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we'll get to all 3 of them. So we'll start with the good for Vitality, as in the results. I mean, it's a top 3 result. It was actually a really close series between themselves and NaVi in the lower bracket finals. They were so close to winning that, actually. I think they were they up 15 to like 12 or 15-11 or something on Nuke? So they had a really good chance of actually taking that one home, and they probably would have won the series in just 2 maps. So I feel like it was a breakdown, the fact that they ended up losing on it, and then they did lose the whole series to NaVi. But I still think that Vitality can be pretty happy about their performance in this tournament. They were also 1 round away from beating Astralis in the upper bracket finals. If they won on Dust 2, it was a 16-14 game there. So
they're up 13-7 on that map too.
Yeah, exactly. They let some of these things slip away. So do you guys, let's just go for, we'll do the good first. So what do you guys think Vitality is doing well still?
I mean, I think Zywo's still pretty nuts on this team. I think the fact that they fell off in this tournament, to me, it was more like a mark against the other players on their roster. Like, the team as a whole just didn't perform very well. There was maps where I think like Ziwu had 25 kills and everybody else had 8, and it's just like that can't. You're just not going to win a match with those sort of lines, right? So I think this may be a bit of a one-off for Vitality in that sense, where they weren't able to sort of maintain their performance going through. But yeah, Ziwu looked really sick throughout their whole bracket run. They also choked some leads, which I think really screwed them in this tournament. So I see them bouncing back. I'm still a fan of how they generally play. I just think that the rest of the players sort of will need to step back up as we go forward.
I'm kind of curious, like, how well they're integrating these 2, Masuta and Navera. And Navera, because like they were kind of like the 2 lowest rated players for them this event, I think. And like, one of those two, like those two are supposed to be like someone has to be like the second fragger or something behind Zyvu, like the second player that's getting set up or something. And I don't know if they're just not doing a good enough job. Shox had like a more decent tournament this tournament, but he's still not someone generally nowadays I'm going to be able to rely on for that. So like in terms of what they're doing good, I think like Shox was playing better this event, RPK is fine, but like the other three just like something needs to give in terms of like there needs to be another player that's like actually consistent. Like I know we said it before a lot, but it's consistently having an impact. And it seems like one of those two should be able to do it more, but they're both still struggling.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually call out a couple players on Vitality here in particular. During the tournament, I feel like the desk was harping a little bit more on RPK, but I still feel like he did okay in his roles, I would say. But for me, I think the biggest problem for this tournament was Navera actually, because he was crazy good in what they were doing at the end of last year. But this tournament, he had one of the most deaths per round of any player. And the way he was dying a lot of the time was so the way Navera likes to play sometimes is he just takes man fights with the op. And in the Navi series, that just cost him. He just died to Simple over and over again. He was getting destroyed by Simple. And you want your opper to feel confident against Simple, but there has to be ways to find success that don't involve challenging him repeatedly. Because Navera, I think in the Navi series, I think he was 3 for 11. Like he was 3 opening kills and I think 8 deaths opening, and he was trying to just take these fights over and over again. That when I watched him before, it was like, holy crap, this dude is peeking down mid on Inferno with an op all the time against Astralis, and you think that they would eventually punish him, but they just didn't. And then this time people did. People kind of knew what he was going to do a little bit more, and I think his individual playbook needs to expand because he's getting kind of found out. He's getting read in a way where it feels like you see the shortcomings of him as a player now a little bit more so. And the other player I was going to call out was going to be Apex, because even in situations where, so sometimes he's the entry and he just dies and that's fine, but if he's in mid late round situations, I noticed he kind of had a hard time, it felt like, playing off of his teammates. And I feel like that was one of those things where when the games were getting close, it felt like Apex was probably trying to put too much on his own plate in terms of how the comms were going, I would say, and he wasn't focusing as much on his own individual performance. And I mean, I've been there before as an in-game leader, and just like, I think anybody can be like, has a story about this where basically you were trying to communicate and you didn't focus on your crosshair and then you just ended up dying. And there were multiple times, it wasn't just one incident, it was multiple times where he like made a really bad kind of movement in a late round situation. And in those kind of clutches, that's when you need to be like as much on point as you can, and you need to just like have that immediate trust that you know that this player's got this angle, this player's got this angle, I need to focus on mine, and I need to win that fight, because the only way we're winning is if I win my duel. It's not micromanage everybody at that point. Just trust teammates. So
yeah, with
I think
Apex,
those two step
like
up.
it's like two things. Like one, yeah, he does need to step up his own game because he's playing a lot of important spots.
Yeah.
And I think especially what Vitality is alongside Zyra right now is another consistent rotator. This kind of seems like something they're lacking. Like RPK does a decent enough job as the anchor. Obviously Shox, he kind of varies from map to map. But it seems like for me, like someone needs to be like consistently in those like rotator spots, like Apex is playing, or like Shox plays on some maps, Masuta or whatever. Just like someone else that's like consistent alongside Zywu. And another thing with Apex is like he definitely needs to like try to get a hold of his emotions more when he's calling, because especially he's like the IGL. I know that was something I'm pretty sure Vitality's coach is pretty big on, like the IGL being able to like keep their composure, especially when Alex was on the team in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an important thing for him, and so Apex constantly just kind of like up and down like whirlwind of emotions, especially as like the IGL, and especially as like that's going to get even more important because, as we'll get into later, like for some of these RMR events, you're not going to have the coach behind you with you, so that's going to be a big thing he's going to need to start really working on and getting down to keep the team as more of a consistent, level-headed.
Yeah, I was gonna mention it when we reached the ugly stage, but like with X's no longer able to contribute at all during matches, even during timeouts, these guys could really be in some trouble if Apex isn't able to keep himself together in some of the late round matches that are happening.
Yeah. Let's get into the ugly. I think we kind of just talked about the bad there. So the ugly being the fact that they had a stream on in the background was definitely the ugliest look for Vitality there.
I thought it was a bit overblown personally, because just knowing from like I'm pretty sure Vitality's in like a whole like HQ, right? So they still have like staff there. They have like some players from other teams, and I mean I don't know how the like venue was laid out, but I just assume they didn't really think about it. I think it was like the big of a deal. I assume they just had staff in the back watching it, behind the room where the players were, and they just didn't really think about it. And like I get like people like yeah, I still think you should get like a fine for it, right? But I don't think it's like as big a deal as some people make it out to be. Like some people are like trying to act like you have like the stream open, right? And like these coaches can fucking like read like fast rounds, like, oh my god, I can see the setups they're running. I can see like I know their entire economy. Like one, like the rounds is already like 2 rounds prior, so like you already know what the economy is. Like you're really not getting that much useful info. And by the way, people can just use fucking scorebot. Like that's having the stream open isn't gonna help. And
I saw a Twitter comment after this, after that whole stream thing blew up, and people were like, "Oh, somebody tweeted out that the stream was in the background, and now Vitality are losing rounds." Like, what are you talking
it's like that
about,
may even matters. Yeah, that happened in the past. It doesn't even change anything.
When you're a coach, like you don't really have time to just like stare at like a fucking screen behind you and see what's happening. Like what the other team was doing 2 rounds before. Like. The amount of useful info you can actually get from that is so fucking minimal. Like, it's not. I guarantee you, it's not like influencing matches as much as some people think it is. Like it still should be a rule. Like, you still should get in trouble for it. You still shouldn't have the stream open. And I do think a fine is appropriate. But I don't think like disqualifying a team from an event for it or like banning people would be necessarily just like would be like holding people accountable. Like I don't think
it was an egregious case at all. Yeah, like ESIC before said that they would be harsh in terms of the penalties that they would implement, but they also said that they now had individual player cams and cameras in the player rooms that they would assess to actually determine that. And based on everything they released and just based on the perspective that was offered, it doesn't seem like this is really that big of a deal as a lot of people were making it out to be. I agree. Like, I think a fine is fine. Maybe $10,000 is a little bit too slim for an org like Vitality, but at the same time, like, it's also not very difficult to just not have a stream on like near the players. I don't think that's a difficult issue to solve for a lot of these organizations. So I can see why they were handed a fine, but I don't think it was as big of a case as people.
But by far the most annoying thing for me is just from personal experience, like the amount of actually useful info that you'll gain from like watching the stream. Because like any decent team will have already done like tons of prep on a team, and like it'll kind of show you like what kind of setups or maybe what the other team has been kind of doing or leaning towards. But like it's already going to be stuff that you're expecting. Like you're not going to be getting any like groundbreaking info from it. Like it's really not going to help you like that much. Just seeing what teams have been doing like 2 rounds prior.
Yeah, it'd be super rare to get anything. I feel like there are very rare cases where it would help you, like the Furia boost on Vertigo, for example. Like that would be something. And kind of like, it almost is like obvious. If you stream snipe that and then you just have a player walking out ramp looking straight up at that boost, people are going to be like, okay, we know you did something there. Like, there's no way you should have expected that. Like, I would just think they're cheating outright, like wall hacking or something.
Because the thing is, like, if I see someone, like, I'm looking at the stream from 2 rounds prior and I saw that, like, you're playing Nuke, right? And you saw the other team on CT side, like, boosted a player ramp. It's like, I mean, I guess that's useful, but it's like, what are the odds that when I go ramp this round that, like, they're going to be boosted again? Like, if anything, it might help me to, like, not think the ramp, but, like, I'm still going to clear, like, the boost. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're probably still running the same entry path that you originally planned anyway.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, cases or, like, just a round basis where it would legitimately help you a lot. And I just haven't really thought of anything personally. But maybe I'm just not fully exploring the possibilities.
I mean, I just casted Rebirth versus Extra Salt in the DreamHack Open NA thing, and Rebirth ran a different CT setup every round. Like, if Rebirth is doing it, it's not like pro teams are running the same setups and you're gonna get anything out of it.
If I'm gonna base the next round that I'm calling off what the other team is doing 2 rounds prior, like, there's a pretty good fucking chance I'm gonna lose the round because I highly doubt I'm gonna be running into the same exact thing. Like, I literally, like, if I was trying to stream snipe with that, I literally think it would do me more harm than it would good, just based on the prep that I do before matches.
You would have a lack of focus for what's actually just happened in the most previous round. So,
exactly.
I mean, I guess teams could hire like a
Yeah, that's the only
second
way I
or
can-
tertiary person to monitor it.
Yeah.
But then it's like you're basically hiring someone to cheat, which is just like, okay, I mean, there are orgs that are sketchy, hashtag be heroic, but like
Yeah.
it's the same thing. They're just like hiring people that have done stuff like that. But that's just like that's a little far for my money. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey man, I put the offer out there. I will take up the opposite role. That you can hire me $3,000 a month. Like I will be there just to turn the streams off for you before matches.
That'd be sweet of you. That'd be really awesome. You could also just literally, if you're Vitality, that room behind him, just rearrange the room so the couches are on the other side and the TV is turned around and no one knows that it's happening at all. All right. Okay. Let's move on to Liquid, the fourth place team here. And Liquid actually doing a pretty solid job, I would say, incorporating Fallen so far. So what did you guys see in Liquid?
I think the main thing that's gonna help because I think they still have Stewie calling at the moment, right?
Yes.
I don't know if like they plan to transition that over time, but just like I felt like before, like they had Stu, Moses, who like so they have a coach that isn't really caught up in the meta of current CS, so that doesn't really help them in terms of that stuff. They had like Twist, Grim, and Naf, which like all solid players, but not people that I think are going to be like a ton to like a team system or anything in terms of like adding stuff like that. So it was just pretty much Stu and Elige. I'm sure Elige has like some decent amount of input, but you know he's never called himself before. He's only been on one team for the past 6 years. So I think just adding in Fallen 1 obviously it helps clear up the roles a bit. I don't think Liquid was particularly happy with like how their roles were sorted on the previous version of the roster. And Fallen just brings experience, even if he's not calling at the moment. It helps a lot to have that in the server, you know, in terms of how you do prep, how your entire team is set up. Just having someone with like that prior guidance and experience really does help. Like it will help Stu as a caller because people think like, oh, Stu's like still the IGL, so it's like, what was the point? But it's like there's more to like a team than just like the IGL and like whatever Stu has in his mind. Like if he's adding Fallen, like Fallen's going to add a bunch of shit. Like he's going to have a lot of input. He's going to add like his own philosophy to the team, and that itself is going to help Stewie in his calling.
I think it also just brings like a little bit of tenure to the team in terms of like the nerves that they have during rounds. Like there was a clip of them like going up lane side on Inferno where the comms got super hectic and Fallen's just like, okay, and he just like calmed everybody down in terms of the comms, and he like concretely walked them through the steps, even though they probably knew what was the idea behind what they were doing. But the fact that they have somebody who can sort of anchor the players in their emotions in those sort of mid rounds is really important for a team like Liquid because they have the experience, and it's not like they make the wrong calls either. Even with Stewie, they just seem like a team who doesn't have like every single bit of it down pat, especially with like a newer player like Grim in the lineup. So having Fallen able to sort of anchor those players in that sense is like incredibly valuable, just to help keep them stable, and also having like a dedicated opper and opening Stewie up to be able to rifle and Naf able to lurk with his rifle a little bit more. Like that's also invaluable because there's peaks and duels that Fallen is taking that Liquid that Stewie and Naf just wouldn't go for, or they would go for it a little bit too late. And when you miss those timing windows at that level, it's too little too late.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me, or not the biggest thing, I think everything you guys said is actually really important. The fact that he was able to calm them down too in the comms was like really eye-opening in what he's actually bringing. I think a huge added bonus of Fallen is that Naf just gets to do Naf things. This is actually, I looked at his event history, and in terms of international events, this is the best he has played since the ECS Season 8 finals in terms of just pure rating. And I feel like that is no coincidence to the fact that he's able to just play more of the actual role that he does instead of having to do this like hybrid role. And he doesn't know on CT side, am I going to opt this round or is Stewie going to opt this round? Am I going to rifle or what? And just knowing that he doesn't have to focus on his op at all is really nice. I mean, like he can still secondary if he wants, but Stewie will, I think, secondary before NAF usually on this team already. And so I'm not counting events that were like only North American because there was a couple like IEM, Beijing, NA. But in terms of actually against international competition, this is the best he's done for actually 2 years, or since 2019, that is. So
we can go back to the NAF. That was like when they played Astralis at like the Face It Major a while ago on the group stage and like it went into overtime, and NAF was like Yeah, I just pick up the op because I felt like it. Picked up the second op because I was feeling it, and he's like, oh no, he said he picked up the second op because he was like tired of losing the rounds. So it's like a Schultz announced a big comeback. He's like, I was tired of losing every round, so I just picked up an op and then we won.
I mean, he can still do that if he wants to, but the fact that he doesn't have to like guess about it, it's just in his control now.
It just helps clear up the roles. It's like Naf doesn't have to worry about what maps he might have to be opping. Like just in general, like the overall team's philosophy. Stewie doesn't have to worry about should Naf be opping on this map or this side. Should I be opping on this map or side? Like it's like Fallen's the opper. I'm Stewie. I'm gonna do Stewie things. Naf is back to lurking, and they're all very set in their roles. They know like each person is doing kind of what they're comfortable with.
And Naf's just like a really irritating player on the server in terms of like the amount of impact he has when he's rifling. So enabling him to do that, I think you're bang on, Maui. He's like allowing him to occupy that role again will just free him up a lot more in the future.
Yeah, those were the only 4 teams I watched really closely. But did anybody else strike you guys at Blast? If not, we could move on.
Complexity has been striking me in a bad way, so won't go too far into that.
Okay.
I don't know, dude. They just JKS and BlameF are just not. It's not fitting.
Yeah. Did you see Haka's video on YouTube about how he said like JKS not fitting into the roster? Because that was okay. So Haka made a video where he kind of talked about how he watched a bunch of JKS demos and how he says that JKS is supposed to be the third man into a bomb site for complexity, but he does like very it's almost like he's supposed to be the last, the way he kind of like routes, in that he'll like on Mirage, for example, like the first 2 guys on B will jump out of the window, and then sometimes the third guy, he goes towards bench side, but JKS would just sit on top of balcony, and it's like you're supposed to probably go in with them, as opposed to just kind of watching.
Like agree, like obviously they're still playing with Yugi, so I don't know what to expect really from them. But like, there's just been rounds where like I see like on Mirage, I forget against what team I was against, but like it seemed like Yugi and BlameF were literally just like last alive every single round. And then there was literally a round where I think it was like BlameF and Yugi were left in like a 2v3, and BlameF was like 14 HP and had the bomb, and Yugi was like 100 HP still. And like BlameF had Yugi go to A and like throw a fake and like just give his life away so that BlameF could like sneak onto B with 14 HP and the bomb. And I was like, you had a lot of time. Like you guys were both grouped together B, and then like that was the decision you made on the 2v3 instead of just like trying to play it together. Like that was so weird, and it was just it struck me in a way that, like, obviously that one specific round isn't like that big of a deal, but just like kind of like the overall mindset that I'm seeing from that is not good. Like,
you just like get the fuck away from me, like
I was just so confused. I was like, instead of just going out together B apps like against one person on B, he had Yugi to just like go die on A and like throw flashes over and then like try to fight and just die, and then BlameF just tried like sneaking out B like alone. Like I was just weird.
I only see that kind of calling in like ESEA Advance and below, or Asian CS. I don't like.
I was like, this is such a severe lack of fundamentals that it just didn't reflect very well on.
I don't think it was even on a round where like the bomb plant money would have been super valuable for them either. Like,
I think it was
like a 14 something round. Yeah,
it was really just like their attempt at like winning the round. I was like, this is bad. Like,
yeah, okay, all right.
I will say I did like Honda for Furia just in terms of like making a pretty decent appearance at the top level. Like that is a baptism of fire that he's going through right now between this and CS.
He's all right.
He didn't impress me in terms of like the way he played the game, like decision making and whatnot, but he was able to compete in terms of his aim. I just don't know how well he'll apply this like going forward, because he's just a player who seems to do very well individually, and once teams sort of learn his habits, then he's going to be hard pressed to keep it up. I think like he seems like to take a lot of inspiration from Art in the way he plays, and he's just not as good at it. So
he's kind of, to me, like a poor man's Yakinder right now. Like he's just he's not as good as Yakinder is, and he tries to do, like you said, like Art things also. Just that kind of aggressive style, and I feel like this was like probably the hardest tournament to try to make that style work. Like even Yakinder, even Art, it was difficult. It would have been difficult for both of them. So it's To be honest, I'm like kind of on the other side of this. I feel like he kind of gave up a lot frequently. He kind of struck me like the thing is when Navera kind of did this for Vitality, it was nice because he has an op, and so when you have an op, you can just hit one shot and fall off. But with Honda, if he takes a slightly more extended duel, he will just die or he'll get maybe one and get traded a lot of the time. So it feels pretty unsafe for me, I would say.
Actually, you know what? That's a fair point because in Summit, he was also picking up the op occasionally, and he was doing a really poor job with it. Like he was giving up a lot of rounds. So that's actually a fair point.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to some of the news that has come out. So this actually just broke today. There is a new coaching rule for the RMR stuff. And I know, Mix, you're going to be upset about it. But first, before we get into your thoughts, I'll just tell the listeners kind of what this was. So basically, coaches and support staff aren't going to be allowed in the same room as people during their RMR matches. So basically, they have their webcams on, and they won't even have the coach there, which I find really like that feels like a lot. But I get it. I was curious, and I don't know if you guys read this in further detail. Does that mean the coach can't even be in the server too?
Yeah, they can't be in the server and they can't communicate with the players either. So like even during timeouts, they can't talk anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I get it for like the online stuff, just because it's so hard to like police it. Like if you're like trying to be like coach, and then like you're trying to like limit them certain rules or like trying to watch them. I get that it can be hard to limit, so they're just going the opposite route of just getting everyone else out. But like I don't know, it's just annoying that certain people have cheated and ruined it for everyone else. And then I think part of the problem was also that none of these people were like held accountable, or like not like none of them, but some of them were. Just continued to keep going. And then just the fact that like obviously the thing with PETA, like he like tweeted that like he literally had told Valve about the bug before, and there just wasn't like a good way to reach them. And so part of this is like it is a result of a bug in the game. It's not like you're purposely getting into this position. Well, generally, some people were, but and so we're getting kind of punished for a bug that Valve kind of just ignored or just didn't have the proper channels to address. And then Valve doesn't really seem to address that at all.
Yeah, like taking zero accountability from Valve on this entire issue is a little bit ridiculous in my eyes. Like they obviously did have a couple of people tell them about this over the last few years, and until it became such a major issue, they did nothing about it. So trying to claim that it's all on the coaches and now they're doing these blanket bans is a little bit egregious in that sense. Also, the way they've sort of rolled out these bans is a bit concerning because they've said that they're basing the number of tournaments that these coaches can't, or number of majors that these coaches can't attend, are based on the ESIC demerit points. But those ESIC demerit points are broken down by a table, and the way that table breaks it down, most of these coaches, even the ones who didn't do too much in terms of like the actual ban, would be ruled out from the next like 4 to 5 majors, which is a little bit concerning. So until that gets clarified, I think it's really hard to make a concrete judgment on the latest.
Yeah, once again, lack of communication completely from Valve. But I mean, I liked everything else that they've done. Got some stickers. Got the Stadium.
Yeah, that's a nice little transition.
I wasn't expecting stickers, so that was nice.
Yeah. 100 Thieves stickers, Gen G stickers. I mean, I'm gonna load up all my guns and support my favorite CS:GO team. Oh wait, they don't have one anymore.
I'm pretty sure neither of the players from those teams are gonna get like any money from that. I don't know how that works, the contracts and stuff, but I guess we'll see.
I don't even know if the players are getting money from these because they're team stickers. There's no player autograph signatures.
Well, I'm just saying, like from like in the past, where like the teams, like the players would get like kind of like a lot of the money from the stickers, from like even the team stickers.
Okay.
So I have no idea how that's gonna work now, but for some of the teams, but whatever.
Yeah, all I know is that if I buy any of these capsules, you'd have to probably buy I think the Challengers one is going to be the best value. I don't think any of those, but if you get an Amiga sticker, you're screwed. No one's going to buy it. That was worth nothing, actually. I think about this because I've actually made a lot buying like just team sticker capsules. Like it's surprisingly very easy to like recognize which of these capsules is probably going to be worth the most. I guess the Legends one would probably be worth the most, but you always feel bad about not buying the one with Tyloo because the Tyloo stickers always just go crazy up. Like I have so many Tyloo stickers right now that are worth like probably several $100s, and I didn't even spend that much money on it. So
And it's just
always,
funny because it's like shout out to 100 Thieves who now has like 2 stickers in the game and 0 majors played.
I know that is funny. That is really funny. They're always the teams that are just out of it. It's just
I don't know how they keep pulling this off, but
shout outs Nate Shot for doing it once again, man.
the art of the deal, dude. Jesus.
Yep.
It's just more money they can put towards their next hoodie collection.
Yo, excellent, dude. They did like a photo shoot in Joshua Tree that probably cost literally $0 to pull off, other than just gas money. Man, they're killing the game with those. But also they reset the RMR standings. So this is, I think, no, you know how this broke down a little bit better, right? It's
yeah. So essentially, they took the teams that were legends, contenders, and challengers last year, and they gave those teams stickers this time around, and then they reset the point standings entirely. But to give the teams that did play last year some form of a bonus, they gave the teams that were legends 600 points to start this year, contenders 300, and challengers 100. So they start with some form of a base of points at least. But then overall, the point standings are entirely reset, building up to the PGL major at the end of this year. It also sort of makes a little bit more sense because we have a bunch of teams in North America who've now gone to Europe and will spend the majority of their year in Europe. So those teams would have, regardless, have had to have their points reset, and the scaling of the points would have just been really off by the time we reached the major.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I honestly wouldn't have liked to see them just keep power creeping the total of events, or like the points at it, because it already, like, we talked about this a little bit before we started the pod, but it would just gotten ridiculous in terms of like, I don't even, like, how do they scale it, like 10,000 points for the next RMR, and it just makes the old ones just feel completely useless, and it's just harder to keep track of the numbers in general. So this just makes things cleaner. I will say I feel kind of bad for the teams that just barely didn't make it. So I think like what was it? Team 1, I think, just barely had less points than the team that was right above them, and now they have 0 points, for example. So that does suck to see, but it had to, the line had to be drawn somewhere. But like 50 points would have been kind of nice to give them a nod. But all in all, I think this is pretty good.
I think it's the best solution they really could have offered in terms of the points.
Yeah. Okay, let's move into some roster moves here. So Cloud9, they're already playing at CS Summit, and by the time this comes out, well, actually, nothing's really going to change. It will just be the game versus NIP. But Cloud9 actually announced that they added Xeppaa, and now he's played a little bit with you guys, and you have also, Mix, been promoted to assistant coach from analysts, and also Elmapuddy is slotting in now as your guys' full-time coach. So how's it working with him? Let's just, yeah.
I'm actually really excited to work with him. There was actually a possibility the past season, before like the whole Gen G team kind of got dropped or whatever, that I was gonna like join Gen G as like assistant coach and kind of partner with Elma. Kind of like whatever the potential lineup they were gonna have, which I think it's pretty widely known now that it's gonna be like Vanity, Xeppaa, and then like the core 3. So that was like a possibility, that something that was gonna happen. So I'm excited to, and at the time I had no idea like the Kassad leaving thing was a possibility. So getting Elma in, I'm pretty excited to work with him as his assistant coach as well. So I guess things just kind of worked out in that way. He's been really good so far. Really love working with him, and having Xeppaa has been really nice. I think it's still like, because we were already like a new team, like we hadn't really played that much together compared to most teams. So slotting in now. So now Alex is getting used to opping. I think people will be kind of surprised at how actually pretty good he is on it. At least so far. At least how far he's been adjusting so far. And yes, I mean, we're still just kind of like getting set. I don't think things are super clear cut in the team yet in terms of roles, and not necessarily roles, but just in terms of everyone being comfortable in their spots, and people just being comfortable overall. Just as a new team, Alex getting used to a new role, Xeppaa getting used to a new team. So still a long ways to go, but I'm pretty excited for this roster.
No, you have any thoughts on this move?
I'm just happy to see Xeppaa not move to Valorant, honestly.
Same.
He's just way too good of a player to have had to move.
Same.
And in fact, like I messaged him when Vanity announced that he was moving, and asked him like, "Hey, are you moving as well?" And he said, "Yeah." So I was planning on writing like a whole chaos move to the game, and then within 24 hours, I find out that there's that report that came out that he was staying in C9 from like 1 PVFR and HLTV. So I was like,
so
"Oh,
he lied.
well,
He lied to you.
No. Back when he told me, it wasn't confirmed.
No,
he was actually about to move, and then within 24 hours, that all changed.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was actually genuinely sad that he was going to change games. So yeah, I'm just glad to see him. I think Cloud9 are just in general like a really interesting team to watch based on the players that they have. I hope that they can continue improving. I think with Xeppaa and Alex on the op, it'll be interesting to watch them over this next couple of months.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, you guys just played 2 series so far with this roster, and I didn't really catch the Furia one, but I will say in the NIP one on Train, you guys played that one pretty well on the T side. I mean, the way that game ended up, you guys honestly looked pretty comfortable overall, and
we had a pretty shit T side against Furia. But also that was really Alex's first time actually calling a match on it in like fucking 2 years or 3 years or something. So
right, they never played it.
Yeah, so it's still Alex is still getting used to calling on Train. And just like I think that's a pretty big adjustment from not playing Train at all to 1 going back to playing Train and calling on it, and 2 now having like also opping on it. Having to adjust the opping still. So Alex has a really underrated work ethic just because he never really talks about it, but like once he learned that, like, or like once he decided he was going to transition to the op role and they're going to bring in Xeppaa, like he plays a ton of FPL, plays a ton of retakes, just he does a ton of shit just to get himself into that kind of get himself acquainted with the role, just outside of scrims and stuff.
Yeah,
he just plays a lot of CS and watches a lot of shit, and I think just kind of thinks of it as like a normal day, normal routine.
Yeah, you definitely, if you're switching to the op, you have to play a bunch of FPL. It would actually just pain me to think about an opper that doesn't play FPL. Like, actually, like, I mean, I can't even really think of any. I mean, I guess Device is probably one of the few that do it.
Yeah.
What?
So even Device plays FPL here and there.
Yeah. So it's just, you need to do it to keep yourself sharp on multiple things. It's just like you never really know what's coming, and you just have to be ready for so many different types of things and that's what FPL is actually going to make you good at, despite all of its flaws and how the lack of structure and things obviously will make it feel a little stupid at times. But if you're not hitting those shots as an opper, then when are you going to hit them? So that's nice to hear that he has that. Okay, so I actually have a question for you, Mix, though. So you guys haven't played Train with Alex at all, and now Elma's on the roster. What's the deal with that? Elma just had a really good Train team.
Yeah, well, it was that, and also that like when he joined, we kind of like, I think before everyone didn't like overpass, like initially, like when the initial lineup formed, like Woxic and Kassad, overpass was like the map people didn't care to play, and now it seems like that's kind of transitioned over to like Mirage is kind of like the map, obviously, that we've been permabanning in Summit so far.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of transitioned from like we already weren't comfortable on Mirage with the previous lineup, like it wasn't like that sick of a map for us or anything. And yeah, so Chris was coming in, and Mirage and Train was like a map he did really good on with Genji. So like, with Genji was really impressive on Train, right? I think that was something you called out yourself, and that was pretty much mostly like Elma's system, like his like kind of his defaults, his like way of like looking at the T side and stuff, and then koosta was just kind of calling off of that. And so it's been a pretty similar thing in this lineup so far, which probably helps Alex in terms of getting used to the map. So mostly Elma's system was pretty clear cut, and then it allows Alex to kind of call around that. And so we also just had like a pretty decent like Train lineup already. I think like we had a pretty natural way. Like Will on the second op also at Ivy has been really sick for us. He's like another person that's like pretty underrated on the op, so it's good to get him using it more. And so we have Esatag and Xeppaa outside, which is like a pretty nasty duo. Floppy at inner is like he's always been pretty good at inner, even like on the old C9 team. So it was an easy thing to pretty much carry over.
Sweet. other move recently, the EXTREMUM roster has actually officially announced their lineup, which is basically the core 3 or core 4 actually of 100 Thieves in Jacob, Azur, Liaz, and Gratisfaction. But instead of JKS, they've got BnTeT. And
to me, like,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like this roster is gonna be like the exact same place as they were before. Just having JK, like having Ben, like BnTeT will be a bit of a different player than JKS. So place in different spots would be more aggressive, so it could change them in that way. But like in terms of like the overall peak and like how I think the team is gonna go down, which is probably BnTeT carrying a lot of the time, and then JKM kind of like the second part, and some of the other players maybe still struggling to pick up their pace. I mean, it could help Liaz.
Yeah, I was thinking that is possible.
That is one thing I'm interested to see how that is like the one factor that I think could take them to a different level, was if Liaz is able to feel more comfortable in certain roles, and you know it kind of helps out not having the BnTeT with JKS. Obviously, that just kind of depends on how BnTeT actually fits into the team. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think without seeing how BnTeT slots in, I think this team will still just be like where they were before in terms of like fringe top 10 sort of level.
Because from scrimming them, it just kind of felt like the same, where it was like they were kind of like solid, and then it felt like there was just one player on the other team that was just fucking owning us the entire scrim, which was BnTeT in the past. That would have been JKS. So it kind of felt very similar.
Yeah,
I think one thing that might help them is that they're not in North America now. They're like playing mostly in Europe, and that might be able to help them get past the barrier that they had before. Because again, when they had that major run, they were boot camping in Europe ahead of it, and that's sort of what really helped them hit that level. So maybe that will help them improve a little bit over time, but I just don't know whether they can reach like the consistent Astralis, NaVi, Vitality level and hold onto that.
You know what would have been sick? If the players that were on HLTV's top 20, instead of making their bold predictions for whoever they did, they just said BnTeT, because he hasn't been on a top 20 list, but I think he can get on one now. I think this is the roster for him to finally break into the top 20.
No, so I think it could happen.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm most hyped about this. Also, I'm a little bit hyped about Liaz probably getting a little bit more space to work with. So both of those actually, I feel like this roster will be like, whereas the last 100 Thieves roster always kind of felt like between 8th and 12th in the world, this one will at one point actually, I think, make it to 5th in the world, but I feel like they can go as low as 16th too. Like, I feel like the range for them is so much greater because instead of having a super solid star that's passive, they're having a super solid star that's aggressive. And I feel like your variance is just always going to be a higher when that's how you're building your team. So I think we all can agree that this is a team that we're very excited to watch, and that we are very glad is still in the CS:GO space. Because if
the roles, I wouldn't be surprised to see like the roles shake out as like maybe JKM playing worse than he did before, maybe Liaz playing better and BnTeT's playing better. So like maybe Liaz and JKM kind of swap just because of the roles, but we'll see how JKM adapts and how Liaz adapts.
I think Jacob's just going to play worse because he's used to playing with Apex right now, and that's going to make him a little bit slow to start. I'm just kidding. That team was
I was going to say, rip that like Norwegian super team that was supposed to be happening.
Yeah, okay, I didn't write that down, but basically, I don't know. Did you guys look at the new Apex roster? Like, they're trying to go more Swedish with it, I think, right now. Who did they... I don't. The problem is, like, I bring up this topic, and it's just like the Galaxy Racer players. In Freddy Frog is, I think, on the team now. I can't remember who they announced other than that, but personally, I only watched them play a couple times, so I can't really give you guys like a super hot take. But this will probably be better than what they had before. No flame to Norway.
They have Dennis and Kriaz.
They've had Dennis for a long time. Okay. He has been like consistently their most obviously experienced player, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's their best player. And like, he always makes the right decisions and clutches sometimes, but he's not like a mega firepower player for them.
Shows you how much attention I pay attention to Apex.
To Apex, okay. All right, one thing on a slightly sadder note is that Koosta retired. So do you guys want to bring out your eulogies for this man? NA's rising star for 4 years straight.
I feel bad because I feel like he could have... There's potential for him as an IGL. He's a really solid role player, just super versatile.
Yeah.
But I'm not too surprised by it, just because Koosta isn't so much like a Counter-Strike player as much as he is just like a fucking gamer. So like, I don't think he really had interest in like moving to Europe to like play Counter-Strike. And so like his other option was like just staying in NA and playing Valorant, just because like I said, he just plays video games. He's just fucking good at every game he touches. He's one of those guys. So I'm perfectly fine in Valorant, and I think he preferred to switch games rather than switch continents, essentially. So
yeah, I heard the exact same thing. I think it's the best decision for him at this point. It does sort of suck because he seemed to be one of those flex players who could fit into any role and did a pretty good job at it. Elmapuddy even mentioned that in an interview I did with him, but I don't know. I guess there's just no teams that would have picked up him as a player at the moment. Like maybe he would have been able to be a decent sixth man for Liquid if they were interested, but aside from that, like I just don't. There's no opportunities open for him at this point. If you want a eulogy, he was a Molotov that burned bright, perhaps a little bit late on the timer, but in the end, he did fade out, and now let him burn bright in Valorant instead.
R.I.P. That's kind of how I actually described him in the little YouTube video I made. That he was NA's Ember for a while. He was just one of those coals that's just he's never the big flame or anything, but he honestly just kind of kept it going, kept the spirits up for his rosters, and just like you said, he did everything. So it's a shame to see actually him move away, but I agree too. I feel like I just feel like he's gonna own it Valorant personally, because anyone that was really good at CS has had a very, for the most part, a pretty easy switch to Valorant from what I have seen. Nitro being like kind of one of the best CS players that switched and then just had a good time. Steel as well. I would say they're both doing incredibly well. And I think Koosta in the NA space is pretty far up there.
Yeah, I would say because Koosta is one of those other players is like, because like Nitro and Steel, like they kind of had a similar thing in common where it was like, Nitro, he didn't like leave CS just because he wasn't getting any offers and no one wanted him. Like he left Liquid, and then from there he pretty much decided he was going to 100 Thieves in Valorant. Still kind of a similar thing. Like he could have easily been in a top team if not for the major ban. So it just kind of made sense that he would switch over and have success. And Koosta's like another one of those players like where it's like, yeah, he's kind of like switching over just because like he can't find a team. But that's not so much because he's not good enough. It's more so just because like if he wants to find a decent team, he pretty much has to go to Europe at the moment. It's not really something he wants to do, and I don't assume he cares about CS enough to like wait around when he could just switch to Gen G Valorant and just continue playing, getting a salary and everything. So
yeah, I assume he'd probably get the same salary, right? Like he's probably under a similar contract, if not the exact same. Just switch the word Valorant for CS:GO.
Probably something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that for him. Also, I actually do like the Gen G Valorant team if people pay attention to that side of things. But yeah, shouts out Dimond. But we'll move on from that one. And here is a trio that has had some difficulties in finding some footing. So I'm talking about Sunny, flusha, and autimatic. And I feel like this lineup 3 years ago would be a top 10 team in the world, but this year I feel like this team would be pretty lucky to scrape the top 15. And so what do you guys think of this lineup's potential? Like, what do you guys think this team needs, or what do you guys think just as that core three?
This is a much more interesting team. I don't know why I get this vibe, but I think it's much more interesting once they go back to LAN, once things are more on LAN. This team, like, it obviously, like, the big thing for me is, like, Sunny's form and whether, like, how he'll perform on like, a new team, because obviously Ents was just kind of a shit show, but he also wasn't performing that well at the end of Maus. So it's like, what's going on there? Is he going to be able to even get back to a decent form? But for me, yeah, this is a team that, like, in the online era, that would probably hover around, like, the top 15. But I think in, like, a LAN-based era, I don't think there'd be, like, top 5 or anything. But I think they could be, like, in a similar position maybe to where, like even, like, where, like, the old 100 Thieves roster was. In terms of, like, on LAN, maybe even a bit better. A bit more rounded. Obviously, it depends on, like, the last 2 players they would get. In terms of how they would round out. But I think there'd be potential there.
Yeah, I think the players they get to round it out is pretty key. Like, is Sunny going to be the in-game leader on this team? Is flusha going to be in-game leading? I don't know if they've actually said anything in terms of that. But like role-wise, if none of them are in-game leading, I think it could just fit really well. the players would slot into their own sides pretty well. But I'm hesitant to see, like, if Sunny's in game leading, I don't know how well the team will do.
Like, for me, the key would be one, like, this team would need like just another solid like role player just to kind of fill out some of the holes.
Yeah.
Because like someone like I think that flusha would have like priority over, and they could just fill in the roles. You know, maybe someone like Koosta or something. But also like the kind of like make or break thing for me for this team, just because I'm not counting on Sunny getting back to like top form, is like they need like a super sick like player that they build around, like because autimatic hasn't really been that for
like a BnTeT.
Yeah, maybe like a BnTeT. Literally like
a koosta and BnTeT would have done really well here.
Yeah, maybe like a koosta and BnTeT. I don't know. That's a bit crazy, but like just having like a star that like they can build around someone younger. You know, I'm not really drawing a clear name as like who that would be at the moment, but someone like that they would be building around to be like their main star, to be the guy that is consistently making like the top 15 in the HLTV top 20 type, you know, like someone like that.
Like an Oboe.
I think Oboe's a bit above their pay grade. That's a bit high of a superstar to go for. I think he's waiting on his top offers.
Actually, that's an interesting question. Where is Oboe going for you guys?
I don't know.
I have no idea, man.
Like, can he just be a 6-man on EG or something? Like, I wouldn't. Give me that.
I don't know. Sure. I don't know what Oboe's up to. He's just chilling, I guess.
Dude, give me Oboe on the EXTREMUM roster as a 6-man. Give me Oboe on EG or Liquid as a 6-man. Give me. God, I feel like Oboe could just be on the best MDL team, and they would just make way for him instantly.
Yeah. That'd be kind of the make or break thing for me for this lineup, in terms of if they can actually like be like a really sustainable top team, is finding like that key piece.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's just such a weird trio to come back together in 2021. Like, it came sort of out of the blue, and so given like a lot of teams moving to 6-man rosters, it's hard to sort of just come up with players that they could round out their roster with, because there's no real like talent that would fit well into the lineup that they need that are available.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, this just happened today also. I don't know if you guys saw, but ChrisJ actually is playing for FPX on loan right now.
Oh yeah, we screened him the other day.
Yeah, he's actually the in-game leader.
Yeah, I actually like that move, because one, I thought ChrisJ did a pretty decent job at in-game leading in the 2018 Maus lineup. Like, they weren't doing anything. They weren't like crazy, like, you know, crazy leadership or anything. But like, for a team that was like kind of just like a ragtag group of people, that kind of just got thrown together, like, it was pretty much, I think at the time they were kind of just considered like budget phase, right? You know, just kind of this group that kind of thrown together. And for what they had, I think ChrisJ did a pretty decent job at calling. Like, they were a pretty decent top 5 team for a lot of their lifespan. And now since then, ChrisJ has just played a year, like 2 years with Kerrigan, which can probably only help for his experience and how he sees the game and everything. So as long as Devilwalk is doing a good job at coaching and providing like a good guidance for him and helping him, and obviously I think a big plus for him is that he'll have Stiko with him again, which I'm pretty sure was a big help for him in Mouse at the time in the past. So I actually really like the move. I think it's a good move for FPX.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a pretty good move all around, both for ChrisJ and for FPX. I like the ChrisJ Stiko combination as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually casted the first game and the only game they've played so far, and they barely lost to EG. It was super close. It was 2 maps, but they actually took EG to overtime on EG's pick of Inferno, and then they played a 13-16 loss on Nuke to EG as well. Like, to come into it as a team with probably, I don't know, a week of practice, maybe 10 days or so of practice, that's a really impressive result, because EG came to Europe very hungry. So to play them that close, I just think that all in all, if they had a couple more plays up their sleeve or didn't okay, they did this. At the beginning of Inferno, they dug themselves into like a 3 to 6 hole because they 4-spot for 4 rounds straight because every round they EG had like 0 players or 1 player alive or very low numbers essentially, and they just kept thinking they could break them eventually, and it just backfired. They lost every round. And if they didn't do that, they could have won Inferno just outright. So this team had a chance of beating EG on their map pick in their first official together, and that's just crazy. So if they don't do weird econ shit like that, I feel like this team is actually a top 15 team for my money. Okay. So this is going to be the question of the day. We're going to wrap things up a little bit quicker this time around. So in a hypothetical world where only Navi, Astralis, and Vitality win every single tournament, what percentage splits of frequency do they win these tournaments with? And we'll start with Note.
All right. Well, I have to clarify. Are we talking LAN tournaments or are we talking about online tournaments?
Okay, let's do this then. Let's do for this year. Let's say everything after June is on LAN. I'm not a fortune teller here with COVID, but let's say the next 5 months. Let's say the next 5 months are online, and then the final 6 months of the year.
What is your COVID relief plan, Mauisnake? Just want to know.
Yeah.
How are we getting there, huh?
Okay, so for the online portion, I would honestly put like Navi and Vitality as the 2 teams that would be winning the majority of those. I want to say like maybe Navi, like if they keep the form they're in right now, I would say like Navi at 45%, Astralis at like 20, and Vitality at I guess 35.
Yeah,
I'm bad at math.
Sounds good.
And then I guess when we go back to LAN, I think Astralis, as long as they realize that Bubsky is not a good player to fill in on Nuke with, we could be like, I can honestly see like this being really even in the latter half of the year. Like I would almost say 33, 33, 33 across the board because Navi was playing really well right before we went online last year. And like just in general, all of these teams can be pretty consistent with the preparation they have going into events. So I would say like 33, 33, 33 when we get to LAN.
I'm going a completely different way. I'm saying even considering like online, I think last year like wasn't I don't know, just in general, if they're like these 3 teams are winning every tournament, I'm saying it's like 65% Astralis. And then like what's the remaining percentage? Like 20% Navi and like 15% Vitality.
Wow. I was gonna go with something pretty similar to that. I was gonna do like I was thinking 50% Astralis, 30% Navi, and 20% Vitality, actually. I feel like the cracks are starting to show for Vitality a little bit more. And I think that Simple is like really hungry this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
it's one tournament, but like I feel like he just wants that number 1.
Vitality like just doesn't have the frag power to consistently compete against Astralis. Navi has the fragging power, but I don't think they have necessarily the overall team structure to consistently
I would
compete
agree with that.
Astralis. And like it seems like Astralis just has like I think Astralis has a leg up on Vitality both in teamwork and individual skill. And then I think Navi has a bit of a leg up in terms of individual skill, especially with Simple and Electronic. But even then, it's like I don't necessarily think like Perfecto, Flamey, and Boomich compared to like Glaive, Zipnix, and who else would I compare that to? Like Magisk probably, yeah. Like it's like Simple and Electronic are better than Device and Dupree. I'd say especially Dupree's. I mean, especially Electronics is generally gonna be better than Dupree, but like the other 3 just fill the gap so much better than Navi has.
Yeah, I feel like people almost like it's almost like they underrate the individuals sometimes of Astralis though, and I feel like across the board, other than Zywoo, Astralis are just better than Vitality. I think the only person on Vitality that kind of holds up against Astralis's players is like Shock sometimes. Like it's weird. It's like I wouldn't pick one player and be like this person's better than Dupree on. There's no one that's better than Dupree. There's no one or other than ZywOo. Device and Dupree are just better than everybody. Magisk is better than everybody. I would say, like, between Glaive and Zip, they're good in their own rights. They provide a lot that I don't think anybody
Provide a
on
lot more
Vitality
than
does.
like, even like Shox does, or like
Yeah,
like,
I think so. Yeah.
You guys present a very convincing argument. I'm very tempted to adjust my Astralis rating here. It's like a 45 maybe for Astralis. And then
Jeez.
yeah, I'd say like, okay, I will adjust. I'll say 45 Astralis on LAN, and then Navi probably 30, 35, and Vitality the rest.
Okay. If I add Liquid to this equation, where do they fall? How much percent do they take away? And who do they take it away from?
yeah,
I think
at the moment I'm like not even sure how much I'm giving per percentage. Like
I want you guys to answer first because I have my answer.
I'd maybe say like 60% Astralis, and then like 20, maybe like 20% Navi. So then I'd probably give like Vitality like 15%, and like Liquid like the other 5% at the moment. I haven't seen enough of Liquid to really give them more at the moment.
Yeah, likewise. I think it's really hard to make a call on Liquid. I would say I'd keep Astralis in that case at 45. Say probably Navi still at 35, and then Vitality would go down a bit and give Liquid maybe 5 or 10%.
Okay. Mine is actually Astralis's percentage goes up and Liquid would just never win anything. Liquid would just be 0%, but somehow Astralis just gets more because Liquid would take out the other two teams sometimes. So that's
you have Liquid still 0% for Liquid, but Astralis bumps up to like 80%.
Yeah, exactly. Astralis goes up to 75% for me, and then it's 20% and 5% Vitality. 20% Navi, 5% Vitality.
So fucked.
Okay. I think that'll do it here for this episode. Thanks to everybody for joining. I'm going to plug the fact that we do still have a Patreon, and we didn't have a Patreon question today. So you guys do donate to us, but make sure to submit a question. I know that was probably hard to remember as your bank accounts were drained. Then you just said, you know what? I want to support these creators for the excellent work that they're doing. But be sure to submit questions, because we want that question in the middle of the show to spice things up. Other than that, reminder that once again, be sure to subscribe on your podcast application of choice: Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. We're on all three of those. We're also on Podbean in case you want the RSS feed. So that's pretty much my shout out. You guys, Mix, what's your shout out of the day?
Shout out to OC.
Sweet. Who just lost to Rebirth, by the way.
It happens. Okay, they're just coming back from break. Give them some time.
Yeah.
Just shout out my Twitter here at Note. But also, I think if you guys have suggestions for guests, feel free to also leave them in the comments. Maybe we can pull from those over time as well.
That's a good idea. That is a good idea. Be sure to comment a guest you guys want, because not only will you guys give us new ideas, but algorithm. What'd you say?
They're gonna suggest like ZywOo.
Let's just get Elmapuddy on. Actually,
he'd probably be down. I'll do it. I'll ask him.
Okay, cool. Pranogo, are you there, or did you fall? Okay,
I did not fall asleep. I promise.
Pog. What's your shout out, Pranogo?
My bed is a very good place to be.
Damn, this man is tired.
Any fellas want to join me? I'll be waiting.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually just got a weighted blanket, so shout out to that as well.
There you go. Shout out Weighted Blanket. Shout out my Twitter. You saw it a couple of times in this show if you were watching. I don't know why you were watching if you were, but there you go. I just listened, man. Double speed. Let's go. PogChamp. Shout out Double Speed. Shout out PogChamp. I don't care what Twitch do. And that's my shout out.
Sweet. Shout out Komodo Hype in the chat when I'm on your screens. That's my emote. I am taking that. That is mine. It's a snake. It is not a lizard. That is a snake. So Komodo Hype's in the chat. All right, that's going to be it here for episode 11. We should actually have another episode pretty shortly for you guys, but hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Just trying to get an episode out and get us back in the flow of things. But other than that, peace out, everybody.